Good evening. I'd like to call the City of Menasha Common Council meeting to order. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Randy.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If we could have the roll, please.
Alderman Langdon.
Here.
Alderman Kruger.
Here.
Alderman Tom Grotti.
Here.
Alderman Ted Grotti.
Here.
Alderman Rapella.
Here.
Alderman Nichols. Here. Alderman Taylor. Here. Alderman Sevenik.
Here.
The first item on the agenda this evening is a public hearing for a special use permit for 335 Oneida Street. Director Schrader, do you have a description for us, please?
Certainly. Up on the screen, as Kurt had put up for us, is the elevation of a proposed car wash at, I believe, 1335 Oneida Street. So this lot is just south of the Festival Foods lot, has access off of the Midway Crossing, which is currently being under construction. It's approximately a 5,000 square foot car wash, an automated facility. Due to this type of use within the C1 district, our zoning code requires a special use permit. A special use permit obviously would have to go through Plan Commission as well as the Common Council for approval. This did go in front of our Plan Commission last Tuesday. They had reviewed the overall aesthetics, facade, site plan requirements, lighting, landscaping, and did see no concern and did approve that plan. So I could certainly answer any questions if there are any. Otherwise, I will leave it short and sweet.
Is there anyone from the public who wishes to comment on the proposed project this evening? Seeing no one, we should wait for Alderman until it's actually on the agenda. Alderman Rapella. Seeing no one from the public, though, we'll call the public hearing to a close, and we'll move on to the report of department heads, officers, department heads, staff, and consultants. And Chancellor Levitt from UW-Oshkosh, UW-Fox Valley, and UW-Fond du Lac is here this evening. And he would like to tell you a little bit about what's been going on at our three campuses.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and the council. It's a pleasure to be back. I was here about a year ago, I believe, when we started this process. What I want to do is report to you some developments in the restructuring of the three campuses to form one university. If you recall, we had a implementation advisory committee, which the mayor sits on, as well as the three county executives from Winnebago, Outagamie, and Fond du Lac. So we met pretty much monthly, for the most part, for the better part of a year, in order to bring about the kind of input that we needed in order to make a successful merger. In this case, I'm put my reading glasses on here. We did a marketing study this last year, and this is one of the reasons why we turned out to be the last receiving campus of the UW. There's 7 different institutions involved in this merger that they all had forwarded needs almost instantaneously, and we took almost a year before we did that, but we're prepared to make a submission to the Board of Regents at the July meeting, which next month, of course. But what I want to do is give you some very, very brief results of the marketing survey that we did do here. That these 3 points were the loudest heard and the most consistent feedback we received during the focus groups and interviews. We interviewed over 1,000 people up and down the lake as a part. It's a pretty extensive part of this feedback here. Student profiles between the 2 access campuses and the UW-Oshkosh are quite different, both in demographic and psychographic profiles. I don't know what the word psychographic means. But I'll tell you, I really don't, but I know what demographic means. But I think that they're just demonstrating that the 3 student populations are very different here. While Fond du Lac and Fox Valley campuses perceive the value of their experience centered on the benefits of access, and I think we all know that. UW-Oshkosh students perceive the value of their experience around the quality of instruction and the city campus combination. With the next slide here, Access Campus students were adamant that they wanted the identity of their location involved in the name. We understood that any change needed to maintain the community designation for the name. Oshkosh campus students also communicated pride in their institution, further confirming that location and campus identity needs to be a cornerstone of the new brand and naming structure. High school counselors is a population we targeted in our research, and they were unanimously in favor of a consolidated brand between that. As you recall, for the year, we left it as UW Fox Valley, a campus of UW Oshkosh, UW Fond du Lac, a campus of UW Oshkosh, and UW Oshkosh. All right, so the high school counselors are heavy influencers for high school students, and we felt strongly that this feedback was important for us to consider. High school counselors were telling us, you need to get one brand. It's too confusing to students to have seemingly three different institutions that are out there. So we took a branded house approach to this. The community stakeholders and the high school counselors' feedback supported moving to a branded house. The attribute testing helped shape that the community location and the name needed to be a strong element in the name and the brand. And with the data from the research project in mind, the recommendation to me was to move forward with one brand, which I'm going to show you now. Excuse me, I'm sorry, I didn't advance it there. But these are the letter marks which will accompany the overall logo of the institution. There's a couple of pretty significant changes here. Certainly for this one here, we've just found through the testing and also with the ongoing brand confusion that we've had ever since the beginning between Fox Valley Technical College and UW Fox Valley, that the naming committee, which is comprised of representation from all of the campuses, along with the marketing data, suggested that we should change it to Fox Cities. And that way we avoid the brand confusion there. So that's one thing. It's kind of ironic because half of the people I talk to think we're merging with Fox Valley Technical College. They're very confused by that. So we would go with UWO Fox Cities, UWO Fox, Fond du Lac, and UWO Oshkosh in that way. And so the kinds of identifiers you might see on the campus will de-emphasize, and I realize this is a sensitivity, the word Oshkosh, and emphasize instead the locality of where the campus is. So you can see the Fond du Lac and the Fox Cities. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions or comments you might have.
Alderman Sevenik.
Thank you. As a graduate of both the University of Wisconsin Fox Valley and the University of Oshkosh, I don't understand this push. Don't get it. I'm proud to have been a graduate of UW Fox Valley. I think if your students can't understand the difference, then maybe they shouldn't be going to college. I don't get that. They only have to learn two names. So that's puzzling to me. It just seems like there's something more underlining here, and I think it has to do with money or financing, something to do with the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh. So this is a Fox Cities college as far as I'm concerned. I do like the fact that you added Fox Cities, but somehow you're still trying to fill in Oshkosh with this. So personally, I like the look and everything, but I'm opposed to what you're doing. I don't think it's necessary. Maybe you just needed to do a better job of promoting the separate universities. So you can understand I'm not being prejudiced in any way because I graduated from both those schools.
Sure.
So I think there's something more here, especially that you're coming to council meetings and bringing this forward to us and stuff. There's something underlining that I don't quite get. Maybe I should have been a part of those meetings.
Certainly a basic factor in all of this is that from our accreditation point of view, which we're accredited by the Higher Learning Commission, this is 3 campuses, 1 university. And so as a matter of fact, all of the students, no matter what campus you resided on, received a diploma that said University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh. And that's simply from accreditation. So we're not actually 3 institutions, we're actually 1 institution with 3 campuses. Yours doesn't because they were separate institutions then.
Right.
But today they are a combined
They are already
institution.
a combined institution,
As of July 1st of last year.
so like I'm saying, there's something more here, and I think it has to do with money or financing and whatever, so. But I think, again, the Fox Cities loses more of our identity again when we take these routes, and those kind of decisions are often made by people who didn't live here.
Okay, thank you.
Chancellor Levitt, did you want to talk a little bit about what precipitated the merging of the three campuses together at the UW level rather than, this
Sure.
wasn't something that UW Oshkosh actually asked for?
No, as a matter of fact, it was announced in October of 2017 by the system with very little warning that they were going to dissolve the UW colleges and disperse those campuses to various local four-year campuses. So UW Fox Valley is the #1 feeder school to UW Oshkosh in that way, so it made sense to connect those two schools. About half of the students who graduate from Fox Valley come to Oshkosh to finish their degrees as you did as well. So that was in October. By November of 17, it was voted by the Board of Regents. And so this was initially an arranged marriage, if you will, that we were asked to take this on. This was precipitated because of the significantly alarming decline in enrollment on all of the UW campuses except for Madison. Madison continues to increase. But the census is way down on all of the UW two-year campuses, and so President Cross thought at the time it would be best to try to preserve the quality of each campus by associating them with the local four-year institutions. That was the rationale.
What's the change or relationship going to be with UW Platteville then, with the program for engineering there?
UW Oshkosh now takes on the responsibilities from UW colleges, and we've already signed an MOU to continue that program. As a matter of fact, we just graduated 17 engineers this month, last month.
But they're considered Platteville.
Yes, they are Platteville graduates, yeah.
So they won't be Oshkosh graduates?
No, they will not be Oshkosh graduates.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then basically we already have a university also there on top of Oshkosh,
Yeah.
which I don't think most people realize. And engineering, I was involved with that when I was on the county board, and it was very important because we have talented and smart individuals that move off to Detroit or other areas of the country that have engineering schools because of the industries that they're, and then so we don't have the engineers here. So those are job opportunities that we're lacking or don't have. So, but we do have a place like Oshkosh Truck, you know. So I pushed very hard for that, and that went through the county board with like no problem. It was a win-win. It's good to hear that you have 17 graduates.
Yeah, we've embraced it and celebrated it. Matter of fact, we have an engineering technology program that will commingle with that, so there'll even be a greater environment of engineers as a result. So we're all on board with that.
So the other big thing that we talked about at all these committee meetings was kind of the importance of UW Fox Cities and Fond du Lac in the scheme of things like what Alderman Sevenick's talking about, allowing people to have access to come to a university.
Right.
And you want to talk a little bit about the vision of what you see both of those two-year campuses becoming maybe 5+ years
Sure.
from now, and how that'll help with job retention and recruitment and people being able to work in the Fox Cities?
Yeah, we with this single institution, you'll be able to go all the way from a certificate program all the way to a doctorate within UW Oshkosh on the 3 different campuses. We will in time roll out select baccalaureate programs or completion programs and even master's degrees to reside on both the Fox and Fond du Lac campus as it makes sense for the local communities to do that. We want to try to increase access to higher education. Even driving down the lake from the Menasha area or the Fox Cities area down to Oshkosh for a master's degree presents a barrier to lots of people because of families and work and everything like that. And so we're just trying to make higher education more accessible. We've completely committed and recommitted ourselves to the access mission of Fox and Fond du Lac and also the transfer mission. So it's very important that any student who goes to the Fox Cities campus be able to transfer to any institution that they choose, that there's not an obligation for them to move to Oshkosh. or even complete at the Fox Cities campus if there's a baccalaureate program, excuse me. So the vision here is really to expand access and keep the affordability first and foremost for each of the campuses.
Not sure if there are any other questions for the Chancellor this evening. Alderman Taylor.
You know, when the college was built on a Midway Road, it was surrounded by farms, okay? Up to 1980, where Shopko is, that was the Schwartzbauer farm, Casperson Farm to the north, the Bayer Farm, Kits and File, that was the Fox Valley Airport at one time, before they moved it out to Grand Chute. And if you look at the back of the Kits and File building, it's your original hangar out there. So this was out in the country when they built this. And I can see the significance of the Fox cities being put on that. But, you know, you look at that, every city has, the whole city has their name up there. And it's unfortunate that Menasha doesn't get their name up there because Fox cities, okay, 7 cities, villages, towns, and it's very large. And I think it's a shame with the new naming that somehow in that Fox Cities campus, Menasha isn't on there. And if this was the situation in Appleton or Neenah, I'll guarantee you their name would be on that. But somehow you're looking past Menasha here, and I don't like it at all. And I think this time, it was so rural before when this started with the Fox Cities campus. Not to inject our name into it, I think is it's not well taken. You know, we have an identity too, and we like to see our name up there too.
Sure.
Now it just looks like gosh. Is there a reason you didn't do that?
Alderman Nichols.
Well, we have Outagamie County involved in this, so this is a Winnebago County city in that way. So there was already Fox Valley was a generic enough name to work for all parties involved, and so to pick a specific place when you have a 2-county support for it, I think could be problematic as well.
Sure. But why wouldn't you have the whole city's name on it, Stephen, where it is? Like I said, if it was at Appleton, you better believe it'd be on there in Neenah. And we're the whole city, and instead of just Fox Cities, why don't identify the city that it's in?
I understand. Yeah,
You
I
got
understand.
Fond du Lac, you got Oshkosh.
We believe that this name presents the best opportunity to draw students. That's what we want to do, is we want to educate students, and so we need to get students on that campus.
I think above it or below it, the Fox Cities should be the Menasha campus.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Nichols.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for being here this evening and for helping keep our community informed about these important decisions. I know this has been a lengthy process and one that was it was sprung on everybody.
Sure.
So I'm happy to hear that you and your team took the time that you thought necessary to make these decisions, to have an inclusive and consensus building process throughout the community. Our UW campus is a great asset for our community and for the region. And I know I'm grateful that we will remain a host city and to have that presence in the community. One of the things that you mentioned that I would like to ask you about is the declining enrollment throughout the UW system.
Right.
We know that this has been sort of buried in the articles that have been reported about this issue, and we know that young people leaving the state is also a problem. So I'm wondering what you, as part of the UW system and your colleagues, can do to address this issue, both at the university level and at the state level.
Sure. Well, I think there's 2 reasons primarily why we are facing declining enrollment. The first, of course, is the declining demographics. There are fewer high school students graduating today than there were 5 years ago, certainly statewide and certainly here in the Valley. The second reason is this economy. That right now, students aren't going to four-year college, they're not going to two-year college, and they're not going to tech college. They're not going to college. And the reason is because a lot of students can leave high school and go get a pretty good paying job because of the labor market is so tight right now. We have 2% unemployment rate in this valley that they don't need to. They can go out and make good money. And so we have seen the participation rates of high school students coming directly out of high school for any kind of college, tech college, two-year or four-year, go way down. And so we know that, you know, things, hot economies don't last forever, unfortunately. And if it does begin to cool a bit, what we will most likely see is a wave of adult learners coming back who need to get some kind of credential, whether it's at a tech college, a two-year or a four-year, beyond that, and also for advancement purposes. So we think that that problem will naturally take care of itself. The second thing is that we are far more sophisticated in our recruitment practices for all three campuses. And so that's something that, you know, it's a much more competitive world these days in terms of where students can go to college. They can go online, they can go to public, they can go to private, they can go to for-profit. We have a huge number of choices in Northeast Wisconsin on where to go to college. There's no question about that. So we have to do a better job at being the kind of attractive option, affordable option, the value proposition that students recognize, and they do. UW Fox Valley for many, many years has been just that, and that was borne out in the information, in the data that we got, that people understand the value of staying home, getting started here, either transferring or leaving for the workforce. So we just need to simply build on that.
Thank you.
Anyone else have questions for the Chancellor? Did you want to talk a little bit about the enrollment at all three campuses?
Yeah, currently we're at about 1,250 students at, it was 1,800 5 years ago. Yeah. The Oshkosh campus is down 1,820 students from 5 years ago. That's $11.5 million of tuition revenue. The Fox campus right now is at about 450. Its high water mark was about 600. So they're all down.
And UW Fox Cities, Fox Valley was basically flat this year, mainly due to international enrollment.
That's
Talk
correct.
about that a little bit as well.
Last fall, as a matter of fact, they were up a little bit. UW Fox Valley was the only campus of the 13 original two-year campuses to see an increase in enrollment. And that's really Martin Rudd's leadership in internationalizing the campus. You'll see that there are now international students on the Fox Valley campus, and we're going to be expanding that program on all three campuses, because that's certainly a way to import talent to the state, which we certainly need.
So when is this final?
This will be voted on on July 11th. The Board of Regents will then approve it.
Any other questions from anyone? Seeing no one else, thank you for coming this evening, Chancellor.
Thank you. I appreciate the
Appreciate it.
opportunity. Have a good day.
We'll move on to the minutes and communications. Do we have a motion? Oh, did I miss something? No, I think we're good. Alderman Sevenick?
Thank you, Mayor. Before I move on to minutes and communications, I sort of have a communication, and I'd like to congratulate one of my colleagues, Alderman Rapella. Today he gave out a scholarship at Menasha High School, so that's appreciated. Thank you very much for doing that. So, moving on then, I'd like to move that we receive minutes A through H and communications I through M.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Do you have discussion too, Stan?
No, I do not. Wait, hold on. There was something.
We can come back to you when you find it. Alderman Nichols?
Thank you, Mayor. Item K, under communications. I'm pleased with the update from the Menasha Utilities about the lead lateral replacement program that we approved last October. And there have been people in the community asking about this. And so if it would be all right, I would just like to update them that the Public Service Commission has approved the program and that Menasha Utilities is waiting for some final order and other information before they can release the program or inform the community of the program.
Yes,
Thank you.
thanks. Alderman Sevenick.
Thank you, Mayor. On the Planning Commission minutes, there was a motion made and seconded on the 1335 Oneida Street, and with the stipulations to find the 5 findings presented by staff to be true, and then the motion carried, but it didn't show the 5 findings, but it's in our communications later on that you gave us, but you wouldn't know that from reading these minutes, what those 5 would be. So I would think that they should be part of your minutes. Because when I first read this, I'm like, well, what are the 5 findings? And then as I read through the packet, you list the 5 findings later on, but not in those minutes.
I can make that motion to add that at tomorrow's meeting when we approve the minutes. I'm gonna put Chief Stika on the spot too. We did do some promotions this afternoon. And if Chief would like to tell us a little bit about the newest members of the management team over at the police department?
Certainly. Council was certainly informed in the past that Lieutenant Chuck Sarr was going to be taking over as deputy chief. And one of the questions you had is when would that take effect? And I told you it was kind of a domino effect as far as hiring in other people and making the other portions of the promotional process go through. Everything is now set, and he took his new position today officially. So Chuck Sarr is now the deputy chief of the department. And then by his position that was vacated and through Mark Mothy's retirement that we talked about, I think last meeting or 2 meetings ago, Adam Schultz, who was a patrol officer, came to us from Onalaska with about 7-8 years of experience, and he's been with us for a couple of years and was just about to the point of being a supervisor in Onalaska, left for personal reasons from that department to be closer to family here. He's one of our new patrol lieutenants. And then Matt Spiegel is our second new patrol lieutenant. He's been with the department for just over 10 years, and certainly welcome both of them to the management team, and I'm sure they will continue to live up to the high standards that we set for the police department going forward.
Thanks. Alderman Karati? Maybe.
On that, I kind of want to congratulate Police Chief Stika on behalf of the city of Menasha and the Common Council. I want to proudly thank you for the professional job that last week involving that standoff. The city of Menasha Police Department did an outstanding job getting this scary and very nervous situation under control, and it ended in a very safe manner for all parties involved. Thank you again, City of Menasha Police Department. Job well done.
Seeing no one else, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion carries. Item F is public comments on any matter of concern to the city. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak this evening? You just want to step up to the microphone if we could get your name and address for the record?
It just goes. Okay,
Yep,
cool.
we're all good.
My name is Zach Wheeler. I live at 858 First Street here in Menasha. I'm here to comment on the application for Diablo Cycling to hold the Menasha Criterion on June 15th. Yes, that's correct. As I understand it, special event applications may be revoked by the office of the mayor or, in this case, rejected for approval due to cases of the facilitator operating in bad faith. I would like to make a case that the Diablo Cycling has for the past few years operated in bad faith for this event. There's been a history of a lack of a notice given to residents. For the past 2 years we've been tracking, we have not received notice until waking up the morning of the event to the sound of sprockets and pedals and tires. When approached about the event, the facilitators last year made mention that they simply ran out of time. And that there was no notice given simply because their volunteers had other things going on and they did not have an opportunity to place notices on our doors. In addition to that, there has not been any consideration given to parking for residents or guests of the residents that are not associated with the event. Typically, an individual like myself that comes home from Festival Foods has to park 2 to 3 blocks away and then hoof it the rest of the way. They do talk about having staff in yellow vests, however, the staff insist that you only enter and exit in between races, which is a massive inconvenience, especially given they typically have tape that they have to take down. There's barriers. If they don't have 2 people at each station to move the barrier, they'll tell you that they can't move it. In general, it's just a hassle for the residents to enter and exit our own neighborhood. There's also been a history of late notices. As I understand it, this year, they received approval from the board on the 20th. This notice was written on the 23rd, and it was received by the residents on the 28th. In addition to that, their application was expected to be in 60 days in advance. I don't understand why this was not on the calendar for the city, why it was not on any of our doors with a tentative approval. They have been advertising for this event since the beginning of May on the various Wisconsin cycling websites. The registration has been open since that time. I understand that's not a prohibited action, but it is a discouraged action according to the special events application packet. And then in addition to that, there's been a consistent inconsistency in the times between the minutes, the application, the event flyers. Outside of that, we're basically expecting the Jefferson Park neighborhood to shut down for 12 hours on a Saturday. Outside of that, I just have had conversations with Steve, the facilitator of the event. Consistently, I've been told that they are not required by the city to do X, Y, Z, whether it's facilitate parking, have notices out earlier. My understanding is they are doing everything by the book, and that's fine. I understand that that's all they're expected to do. However, based on that and the previously aforementioned things, I feel that this organization is operating in bad faith because they have consistently and repeatedly failed to exhibit consideration for the residents of the neighborhood with which they are inconveniencing by this event. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and the council, for your time. That's the end of my very nervous speech.
You did great. Thank you for coming tonight. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak this evening?
I'm William Eisenach, 862 First Street. Zach pretty much covered everything about the bike race that we have problems with. I love the bike race. The bike race is awesome, but it is a major inconvenience for us as residents in the neighborhood. I would love to see it maybe get moved to a different part of the city for a few years and maybe come back to us for a couple years, you know. I mean, I know some of the roads around the city aren't in the best shape or be ideal for a bike race, but, you know, it'd just be great that we wouldn't get inconvenienced for a couple years. That is it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Rosita Eisenach, 862 First Street, Menasha. I also am going off of what Zach had said. The previous years, as far as I can remember, we have never gotten a notice, and this year we did, and it's last minute, and, you know, we run a business also, and so now we gotta try to get in and out, you know, of parking into the business and around, and it's just been a real inconvenience, and they haven't been very nice when you try to say, hey, can I sneak out in between races? They're like, no. Previous years, and so it'd be nice if it just got switched to a different neighborhood for a year or two so we can catch a break for once. That's all I have. Thank you.
Sarah Wheeler, 858 First Street. I would just like to also comment on the Diablo cycling event and how much of an inconvenience it is, especially in regards to how much of a notice we didn't receive this year. I have already planned my husband's 30th birthday party that day. I have a bunch of people coming over. I have to pick up food from the caterers that morning. Now I have to try to go through and time my runs between bike events. I know that it's just one little thing, but if I had prior notice, I might have been able to switch the date of the party.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Okay, thank you all for coming this evening. We'll move on to item G, which is the consent agenda. There are 11 items this evening. The minutes to approve from the Common Council meeting of May 20th. The recommendations from the Administration Committee on May 20th to accept the bid of the Post Crescent for the official city newspaper and the agreement with Spielbauer Fireworks. The Board of Public Works recommendations from May 20th for the street use application for Diablo Cycling, the street use application for Community Fest, the street use application for the Grunsky Runsky, the payment to Feeker and Sons for the Community Way new storm sewer water main and street construction in the amount of $134,641.65. The payment to Summers Construction for the Province Terrace Jenny and Province Link and Midway Crossing area for $50,000, $199.04. The payment to Yankee General Contractors for the Province Terrace Trail in the amount of $130,000, $589.56. To pursue the USDA funding option and request that the RDA sign Form 1942-46 as the letter of intent. And the Plan Commission recommendation for the special use permit for 1335 Oneida Street. Are there items that people would like to have separated this evening? Alderman Sevenick.
Thank you, Mayor. At this time, I'd like to separate Board of Public Works recommendations 4, 7, 8, 9, and 10.
Are there others? Seeing no others, do we have a motion for the remaining items? Alderman Sevenick?
We're taking them separately, right? Move for the approval of the, item 1, the
Do you want to,
minutes of 5, or,
you want to do all the
oh, no, I'm
remaining
sorry,
ones,
I'm
right?
sorry, Steve, you take this. If it's 4.
No, we're
Oh,
looking for a
we're
motion for
accepting the
1,
remaining.
1,
Yep.
2, 3, 5, 6, and
Yep.
11.
Yep, thank you.
Is there a motion to do that? Are you making the motion, Stan? You normally would. Okay.
I guess we'll redo this. So at this time, Mayor, I'd like for us to approve 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6.
And 11?
I thought 11 was on its own. It's not.
You'd like that one separately too?
Definitely, that has to be separately. I
Okay.
thought that was gonna be,
That's fine.
separate.
So the
Under
minutes,
just planning
the
commission.
official newspaper, the fireworks, Community Fest, and Grunsky Runsky is what the motion is for. And do we have a second? Second. There's a motion and a second by Alderman Grady. And if we could have a roll call vote, please. Whatever.
Motion carried on roll call 8-0.
Item 4 is the street use application for Diablo Cycling. Is there a motion? Alderman Kruger.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make the motion for the approval of the street use application for Diablo Cycling Menasha Criterium Saturday, June 15th, 2019, from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. For Diablo Cycling, but I'm making this motion for discussion, please.
Is there a second?
A second.
So motion and a second. Discussion. Did you have discussion, Steve, or?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say, I really feel for the residents over there. I mean, hearing about it, I mean, if that was happening in my neighborhood on every single year where I couldn't get to my house and all that type of stuff, I mean, I'd be a little bit upset about it too. And does anybody know why the reason is, why the notices came out so late again? I mean,
So in the past, we've always required that notices be delivered before the event. This would not necessarily mean that notices would be delivered before council meetings to give people the chance to come to the council. So we changed our special event procedures this year to require that notices are out at least 1 week before the council meeting to give residents a chance to voice their opinions at the council meeting itself. We can definitely take a look at that and make it further out. The problem is if you start moving that date, a month out, month and a half out, people tend not to remember those dates, or they, oh shoot, I forgot. So, we want to keep it close enough to the event that people are aware of the event going on that day, but also close enough to the council meeting that they're able to do that. So we did think that a week was plenty of time. If you guys would like to see more, we can definitely look into that for next year.
Is there any reason why the Diablo people can't be mandated to open up the darn roads in between races so they can access their houses? I mean, again, if I had to carry groceries 3 blocks, I would not be a happy camper even in the least bit.
We can definitely have that discussion with them. If you guys make it a condition of your street use permit that residents are allowed to access their property at all times, then that's a condition that they would have to follow, per the event. So that might be an option, would be, that they would have to provide residential access at all times.
Okay, well, I would like to make that motion. What?
You can't stop the middle of a race for someone to drive into their driveway.
Well, we need to, why don't we let discussion continue and then we'll,
Let's finish this.
Okay, well, hold on, let's discuss it more, but, and my feeling is that you can't expect residents every single year to be blocked out of their home either, year after year after year, on very little notice either. I mean, I'll see what everybody else has to say.
Alderman Langdon?
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I'm very discouraged at this, from what I'm hearing from the constituents on Diablo's, on how they're acting. I don't think anybody's up and above any city. I don't care if they bring in people, their races are really good. If they're acting like that, I would like to see the constituents, if you could, monitor and see how their actions are again. And if they're the same again this year, I will definitely be putting my foot on not allowing them again. So, thank you.
Alderman Sevenick?
I just wanted to note that the residents that are there must have lived there less than 10 years because there were bike races there for about 20 years straight. That was called Otto Grunsky. Not the one that we're approving tonight, the run one, but there used to be bike races and it went for more than like 26 years. So, and most of those were in your neighborhood, and at one point we did move it to the downtown to generate more people to be involved. But just so the council knows and everyone else, this is something that's put together by the firefighters. No? I just asked James, he said that it was. Oh. Okay.
Backdraft is the fire.
Oh, theirs is the
fighters.
backdraft, excuse me.
Yes, and theirs isn't a criterion, it's more of a,
What they need to do then, this group, is they need to have more volunteers then. To be, so basically, when you make that motion, I don't disagree with you, but when there's a race, you can't stop a race. I mean, that's a safety matter. These guys are going 30, 40 miles an hour, and you just stand in front of them. You can feel the wind go by when you stand there. So, but definitely they should do a better job of manning and having access for the residents to be able to come in and out. And I think part of the problem with that has been volunteers, and that's in any kind of event. So if you want to hold an event, you need to have enough volunteers to take care of the event. So before Steve made his motion, I wanted to make sure that it wasn't just anytime you guys want to come driving in, you can come driving in, you gotta stop the race. Can't do that, so.
Alderman Repella?
Thank you, Mayor. Josh, do they have this, has this been the second weekend of June for, is it consistently the second weekend of June?
From my experience, it's been consistently right around the same time in June. I don't know if it's always the second weekend or if it's sometimes the first or third. Was in June the last 2 years.
Okay.
I do know that, so.
What's what's the route? They go around what streets? I guess I was trying to find it, I didn't find it.
It goes from Manitowoc, down Manitowoc Street, and is it Second and Ice?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Ice, Broad, Green Bay, and Second, and a little bit on First as well.
So
So
they-
it's a big circle.
So they've used that same route as Alderman Sevenick has been, mentioned that when they had it for the Otto Grunski races, the bike races, that same route, those same streets. And I guess my concern is the EAA has their fly-in the last weekend or the last week of July. Those people aren't complaining. They know that the fly-in's coming. I guess, as Alderman Sevenick mentioned, this is standard. Those bike races are there, and whether they send out a notice or not, they're coming up. So, I just feel they should get out some lawn chairs and enjoy the races. Thank you.
Alderman Grady?
Thank you, Mayor. I kind of agree with Alderman Kruger on this, to inconvenience someone, especially the young gentleman that's going to have a 30th birthday. But in the motion, maybe.
29.
Oh,
29.
maybe in the motion also have a certain time, like at 10:15 to 10:30 you're allowed in, so then they know they can't race. Because you just can't stop it in the middle of a race. I agree with you, Alderman Sevenick. But maybe have certain times etched in there so they can know when they can be inconvenienced or convenienced. Thank you.
So Sam was kind enough to pull up the schedule for the Diablo race, and it looks like pretty much from 9 until 2, there's no more than 5 or 10 minutes between races. Maybe one 20-minute stretch, but it looks like they have it pretty well timed out where it's, race. So I don't know if they necessarily have it where, you can get a ton of people in or out for 15 minutes. It might be a 5-minute stretch here or a 5-minute stretch there.
Could be a recommendation next year.
Alderman Kruger?
Well, actually, before I make my motion, I'll let Alderman Taylor go.
Alderman Taylor?
For over 20 years, I ran the Otto Grunski race, both at the park and downtown. And we made a point to talk to all the residents. And if they were on the course, we would tell them to back out into the apron of their driveway. And then as soon as that race was done, we would let them out. And the people that were in the interior roads, we asked them to drive to the corner where our corner workers were. And the corner worker could slip those out as the peloton went past. They would let those people out as the peloton went past. So we worked very close with the neighborhood, and I don't know if it's a lack of volunteers or communication, but everybody was in radio contact at all the corners, and we accommodated everybody as best we could, and immediately between laps, we would let people cross too.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, I'd like to make an amendment to include that the residents must have access in between bike races during the event.
There's a motion and a second. It would be well, it would be an amendment. So this would amend the motion. And I just want to make sure that we have a good amendment here with the attorney. Must have access between races. Is that, that's fine?
Yes.
So the motion is to amend the street use application to require access between races. Did you have either of you have questions about the amendment at this point? James, did you have a question about the amendment? Yeah, amendment? Okay.
Yeah, I would just ask that the residents get back to us and let us know how they perform this year. And, the week after, or directly after that, call the mayor's office or Department of Public Works and let them know what you thought.
You said you didn't have anything on the amendment, right, Randy? No. Okay, so do we want to take a roll call vote on the amendment?
Residents must have access in between races.
Yes. if I can do this. Here, use this one. I'll do it for you. Motion carries 7-1. There's something strange with our microphones tonight. Alderman Rapella?
Yeah, thank you. Couple things. One for the residents. I know they used to do this a long time ago when I used to watch the bike races down there when they had them with the Autogrunski. The people in the houses would get up before the races start and they would park their cars down like a couple blocks. And then so they'd have to walk a couple blocks. And then, so that's how they alleviated that problem. And so they were willing to just walk those 2 blocks to get in their car. So instead of keeping it in their driveway or in their garage, they were already out in the drive, on a different street. And as far as the amendment goes, so that's a way for you guys to solve it if you want to, at least for this year. I voted against the amendment because there was no time frame. So as far as if it was more set up as far as having the races, after 3 races, there will be a 15-minute intermission. And then after 6 races, or, another 3 races, there'll be a 15 or 10-minute intermission, that there will not be a bike race. So then people are allowed to move during that time. So I didn't like that it's kind of haphazard when the people are gonna be able to leave their driveways. So that's why I voted no. I still feel it's no. Thank you.
Alderman Taylor?
I see a lot of you are on First Street, and I know the race, I don't know if it goes down your block or not, or if it goes over to, it does go down your block, okay? They cut back to Green Bay Street. Before, they used to go down Ice to Second and back to Broad, so they're on your street. But I'd go down and talk to the corner worker. You gotta get in and out and tell them, that, I know some of you are close to the corner, and you could just say, hey, I'd like to get out between laps here, and, especially when the race starts, the group is all bunched up together. Towards the end, they start stretching out, and then you got stragglers and stuff. But if you got to get out during the race, just get down to the corner and ask those guys to say, hey, we'll time it just right that I can get out of here.
Alderman Nichols?
Thank you, Mayor. What are the residents' options if the directive is not followed?
I think I would guess call the police at that point. We don't, we as the Public Works Department wouldn't necessarily have anything that we could do other than, recommend denial for the following year. But that's about the only thing that we would have the power to do. I don't know if the police would be able to respond to that or not. I'd have to discuss with Chief Stika.
If the special use permit is approved, they have a right to be on the street. So, obviously, like a lot of situations that we get called to, there might not be a law violation, but we just try to keep peace between people. It's not that unless there be some sort of safety issue that we would have to shut down the races, which would be pretty catastrophic for us to do. I guess our role would be just to try to mediate the immediate problems in the neighborhood. But I don't think we really have the ability to have a nuclear option, if you will, to mandate or take sides of one versus the other, because if the street use permit is allowed, they then have a right to be there. Albeit with the amendment that you folks have already voted to include with the motion, then the street use permit would be valid with the exception of the times that the races aren't going on. So again, we would just try to be mediating what you've approved, if that helps.
It does. It's important for everyone to know.
Sure.
And to understand what everyone's roles are in this. And so I think that emphasizes the importance of follow-up after the event. Thank you.
We have even odd parking, so the residents on the end of First Street in front of Jefferson School, I'd probably get your car down there before overnight or something. That way you can cross the street or get in and out as much as you want at that point. So take advantage of that too. I know our nightmare with the race was always that if somebody was moving on that day, you know, you got trailers and trucks and everything, and that was always our nightmare, that we thought we were gonna catch somebody on moving day, which I'm glad none of you are moving, so appreciate you living in the city of Menasha.
Okay, seeing no further discussion, we have a motion as amended to include that residents must have access between races. If we could have a roll call vote on the motion as amended. Again, it doesn't work very well.
Motion carried on roll call 7-1.
So for the people in the audience, there is another point at the end of the meeting that you can speak again if you'd like to stay. And hopefully it won't be too late. Item 7 is a payment to Feker and Sons. Do we have a motion? Alderman Kruger?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make the motion to approve the payment to Feker and Sons Incorporated, contract unit number 2018-4, Community Way, New Storm Sewer, Water Main, and Street Construction for $134,641.65, payment number 1.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, if we could have a roll call vote, please. This is gonna be, oh, actually, I think can we do that? Let's try this.
Okay. Motion carried on roll call 8-0.
Item 8 is a payment to Summers Construction. Alderman Kruger?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make the motion to approve the payment to Summers Construction Incorporated, contract unit number 2019-01, the new street construction, Province Trail, Jenny Street, Province Link, and Midway Crossing, various locations for $50,199.04, payment number 1.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Alderman Sevenik?
Has there been some kind of slowdown on, you might want to give him the mic, with Providence? It seems like it was really moving, then it like stopped.
We ran, due to the wet conditions this year, as well as poor base conditions, we ran into about a 250-foot long stretch that they had to excavate and remove about a foot of the soil and then re-put in base, so that did cause quite a bit of a slowdown out there.
I didn't see it today, but I mean, over the weekend I saw
Yep.
it was no different than 2 weeks ago. So.
Yeah, that was the main reason, and then also just the weather we've been having has been, you know, a lot of rain, and the base is pretty wet right now.
Okay, seeing no further discussion, if we could have a roll call vote, please.
Motion carried on roll call 8-0.
Item 9 is a payment to Yankee General Contractors. Do we have a motion? Alderman Kruger?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make the motion to approve the payment to Yankee General Contractors Incorporated, contract unit number 2019-05 for Province Terrace Trail, Nature's Way to US Highway 10 to State Highway 114 for $130,589.56, payment number 4.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, if we could have a roll call vote, please. Oops.
Motion carried on roll call 8-0.
And just a bit of information for the council. It looks like we'll be having a ribbon cutting for that project on June 18th. There'll be a press release coming out 10:30 in the morning. We're going to have some students from the summer school program and some people from HECROD there, so moving along quickly. Item 10 is to pursue the USDA funding. Did I miss one? No. Okay. Is there a motion? No? Okay. Alderman Kruger?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make the motion to pursue the USDA funding option and request that the redevelopment authority of the city of Menasha sign Form 1942-46, letter of intent to meet conditions, and Form 1940-1, request of obligation of funds by June 7th, 2019. This does not commit the RDA to approve any construction of the building at this time.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, if we could have a roll call vote, please.
Motion carried on roll call 8-0.
Item 11 is the special use permit for 1335 Oneida Street. Do we have a motion? Alderman Nichols.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move for the approval of the special use permit for 1335 Oneida Street and find that the 5 findings presented are to be true.
Is there a second? There's a motion and a second by Alderman Kruger. Is there discussion? Did you have discussion, Alderman Nichols?
Would Alderman Sevenig prefer that the findings be included in the motion?
No, I know what they are, it's just that they should have been part of the minutes, that's all. Thank you, though.
Seeing no further discussion, oops, Alderman Taylor.
Sam, do we take in consideration that within a mile, there's 3 car washes?
I did not, as I was not at the last plan commission meeting, maybe I could let, the mayor or our alderman representative answer that?
I don't believe there was any discussion. There was another person that's also proposing a car wash that was at that meeting as well on Highway 47. That person didn't perceive the market saturated at that point. They still want to move forward with that car wash on Highway 47 as well. They feel that those are different enough options within the market that there's room for all of them.
What is the price tag on this?
I did see a recent article of a very, very similar one down in Mount Pleasant that had like a $3 million construction price tag on it, but I don't have that information in front of me.
I'm just trying to look at the tax base we're gonna get off of this property, you know? I don't see that on grocery stores sometimes, $3 million, so you think we're gonna get that?
You wouldn't get the total assessed value, wouldn't be 100% of the construction cost. I did ask our assessor, as another alderman had asked this question today, and I won't have an answer till later this week. I would estimate, looking at other facilities, that the total assessed value would be in the $800 to $1 million range. And then looking at our tax rate, that would be roughly $11,000 just for the city's aspect annually.
And how many jobs related to this?
I don't have that answer, but I can certainly bring that back too.
Since we're landlocked, and that seems to be our commercial growth corridor there, and definitely prime real estate, you think it's wise for us to put another car wash out in that area?
I don't know as if, from a city's aspect, we can necessarily deny based on a use. You can add conditions, mitigate certain situations such as the findings required by code, but you can't necessarily deny someone to build on their own property.
I know, being around these car washes, the vacuum cleaners are very loud, and I know that's not city residential across the street, it's Fox Crossing across the street, but we have really nice R1 homes to the east of it, and you know, I don't know if these vacuum cleaners are gonna carry that much sound out there to, you know, that the residents have to listen to those.
We do obviously have a noise ordinance in play, so that could certainly be something that we could follow up on. I believe an appropriate condition would be to place a time of operation on that. I have seen that in other facilities, but I guess that question would probably be better answered by the attorney.
Do you want to comment on? He's asking, could we put a time of use requirement on the project, of operation, I should say? Oops.
Just out of thin air, no. There would have to be some basis for that. So someone would have to figure out what is an appropriate time and what's the purpose served, the public purpose served, those kinds of things. Otherwise, that condition could be challenged if there's not a substantiation of what that requirement is.
Sam, there are different types of, you may want to talk to this developer, and there are different types of vacuum machines that are exhausted directly out, or they're filtered or muffled somehow. So I'm just thinking with those homes to the east out there, definitely be a problem. So just something to look out for. And I know the car wash in Fox Crossing on 47 has, if you go by there at night, it looks like there's a carnival in town. The LED lights, the red lights going around, it's, if you check out the one across from Tom's Drive-In out there at night, maybe on your way home, and you can't believe the amount of lights they've put in there now. So it's I know it's to get your attention, but it's pretty distracting. And also, I don't know if we want that in our C1 district there.
Alderman Repella.
Thank you, Mayor. What? Oh, thank you, Mayor. I question that too, as far as having 3 car washes close by. I did see Sam did send a nice picture of the nice colors and everything. I think the car wash looks very nice. I think we'll just have clean cars in Menasha. That's a key point. It could be a niche for Menasha, home of clean cars. Put
It's our new tagline, huh?
Marketing department, yes. I do, I don't know what these people are thinking. I mean, there's 3 car washes close by. I wouldn't have done that, but it is a nice building. Seems to be, it's gonna be better than those 3-stall brown ones that are around the city in different cities, as those are kind of dumpy and old and whatever, unkept. But this one looks like it'll be a nice one, and then I guess I'm in favor of having it. I know they do have those dryers that do make a lot of noise, but for where it's located at with the traffic noise, it's not gonna, and it's not located near any houses very close by. So I'm in favor of it, so thank you.
Alderman Sevenick?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm also in favor of the car wash. This is, from what I've seen and read and followed through the planning commission, it's a quality building. You don't put a car wash up for $1 million if it's not high-end. The other point I want to make is we're talking about saturation. Well, we have to recall that a car wash was taken down literally a block away. So you're basically going to have the same amount of car washes in the area. So.
Okay, seeing no further discussion, if we could have a roll call vote, please.
Motion carried on roll call 8-0.
Item I is action items. The first item is the accounts payable and payroll for May 21st through May 30th. Is there a motion? Alderman Nichols?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move for the approval of the accounts payable and payroll for the term of May 21st through May 30th, 2019, in the amount of $1,232,594.70.
So motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, if we could have a roll call vote, please.
Motion carried on roll call 8-0.
Item 2 is the beverage operators license applications for 2017 through 19. And there are some recommended for approval and some recommended for denial. If we could have the ones for approval, please. Alderman Nichols?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move for the approval of the beverage operators license applications as listed under approved and to include Kimberly Verrett for the 2017 through 2019 licensing period as listed in the deputy clerk's memo dated May 30th, 2019.
There's a motion and a second. I'm just gonna verify that there are 4 people, Brian Burr, Rachel Kramer, Brittany LaFountain, and Kimberly Verrett. My memo says May 31st, just so that everyone knows which one we're talking about here. Alderman Nichols?
That memo was probably in my email box.
Okay.
I'm reading the one from my packet.
Perfect, just so we have the
Thank
right
you.
4 people here.
Yes, and Kimberly Verrett was
fourth
inadvertently left off the list.
Yes.
And so, originally, so she's back on. Thank you.
And I think there was a second at some point? correct? Okay, Alderman Kruger. Any further discussion? Seeing none, if we could have a roll call vote, please.
Motion carried on roll call 8-0.
We do have 3 that are recommended for denial. I don't know if Ms. Long is here this evening. So we would typically let you speak, and we might have a few questions for you at the end as well.
Some of you may remember me. I was here previously. This has been a little bit of a lengthy process for me that I started in February and had run into some misfortunes, I guess if we'll say. So I was originally denied due to an issue with my probation officer allowing me to bartend. We had came to an agreement that, well, I should say she was coming to an agreement with me that she was going to allow me to bartend only at 1 bar. However, I have been bartending at 2 bars prior to this to make ends meet. And so at that time, her and I had decided that it was best for the long term for me to go ahead and revoke myself. And so with that, I had sat my time and I'm no longer on probation. And after sitting my time, I went ahead and I redid my application, and I had received another denial listing different reasons that were not included with my first denial, so I was pretty shocked to receive it. I guess one of the things on here that you have listed is that according to guideline 3 with my OWI second and then a damage to property fine, that is why I am in the denial process. However, the damage to property is an ordinance violation, and according to the application, I did not need to have the ordinance violation listed. And so I feel that should be removed, which then drops me down to just my OWI, which does not break guideline 3, and so I feel that it should be approved. With that, I've been in contact with Eric from the DOR prior to me applying the first time, as well as speaking with the chief, because I did not want to be here wasting any of your time or my own time and money for this process. And in disclosing everything, I'm I'm not quite sure why I'm standing here today, other than that I am seeking your approval.
Sure. I don't know if the attorney has any questions for you or the chief? Did you have some questions?
The criminal damage to property, where did that occur?
Shawano County.
And what were the circumstances of that?
It was a disagreement with a roommate in my home, and simply because, although I was paying for that property, because the property was in his name, I was charged with a damage to the property.
And so specifically, what is it that happened?
I had broken a mirror on his truck.
And that was a forfeiture, so you received a citation?
Correct.
Is that it?
Yes, so you'll see, it comes up in the clerk of courts from Shawano County, because I went there to question it, you know, that it was still, you know, when you look at it, it appears criminal, and so they had printed this out to me to provide to you that it was amended to a county ordinance fine.
Okay, so it started out as a criminal matter, is that it?
Correct.
And then,
it was reduced.
okay, got it, thank you.
Does any of the council have any questions or would like to make a motion? Alderman Sevenick?
So, by eliminating that one, because it's not a criminal situation, ordinance violation, that, she would be under the guidelines?
Did you want to comment or not? Oops, and
Maybe if I turn mine up.
there we go.
I don't know, does he want it?
Doesn't look like it.
I have the guidelines with me if you need to see it.
With regard to convictions, forfeiture convictions, even if they are, if it's not criminal, can be considered, and that is particularly under, and I don't remember what guideline it is, but it has to do with is it a habitual offender? I think that's what it's called, habitual offender.
That's also guideline 3.
And habitual offender, we look at any kind of convictions, and if there are convictions within a short period of time, multiple convictions, they can be considered. It would be up to the Common Council to decide whether or not they were going to consider them based on the circumstances, which is why I was asking or inquiring about, you know, exactly what is it that happened. And the council would be able to decide whether or not the convictions substantially relate to the license for which she's applying, that being an alcohol license, or I should say bartending, and as a highly regulated activity, you know, someone is required to, or going to be expected to work with police and have to follow the laws. And so that's a determination that is now in the Common Council's hands.
Thank you, Mayor. A question for Michelle. You said you're bartending somewhere else currently. What cities?
So I have been an on and off bartender for the past 10 years. I started out in Hilbert, moved to Kaukauna, Oshkosh, Winneconne. Most recent was Pulsifer up in the Bondwell area. I also bartended in Shawano and Bondwell.
So you're not bartending currently?
Not at this time. I don't have my license
License.
for down here. I just moved down here a little over a year ago.
Okay. And which place in Menasha you're looking to bartend?
I was looking at Redliner.
Redliner? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. So are you able, would Michelle be able to bartend by herself, or would she need somebody with her? Or is that a restriction or anything like that? Attorney Captain?
There we are. Someone is able to bartend if, without the license, if there is another licensed bartender on the premises. If the person does not hold a bartender's license, then that person is not able to bartend alone.
Thank you. Do you have anything else, man? No, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Just leave it, Randy.
On January 15, 2018, found guilty of criminal damage to property, which was reduced as we heard. On December 19th, 2018, found guilty OWI, second misdemeanor. Attorney Captain, if we just had that December 19, 2018 offense, would that put Ms. Long into our program, or would that be enough for her to be in our program?
The guidelines are just that, they're guidelines that the Common Council sets so that people understand when they are applying for bartender's license, what the council will be looking at. That's why we ask then the questions that we do about the circumstances of the convictions that they have, because it may be that the council takes into consideration those circumstances. Having an OWI, in December of 2018, according to the guidelines, if that was the only thing that was on there, would not be affected by the guidelines, so the person would think that they would be getting a license based on the written guidelines that you have.
Thank you.
I have to turn, for some reason, it's only letting me have 2 microphones on at a time. That's why we're playing this little game. Any other discussion? If we have no other discussion, I'd accept a motion at this point for either approval or denial.
May I add something?
Sure.
And so this is why I reached out to Eric with the Department of Revenue as well. He's the enforcement official who looks over these kinds of things. And he told me, you know, he told me about the Act of 278, and he said that some councils aren't familiar with it because it's very new. It just came out in April of 2018. So even if you were looking at just my drunk driving alone, there's a list of stuff, and I'm not very good with this stuff. But it does say to, you know, take into consideration the length of time that has elapsed since my offense has been committed and things like that. And so my drunk driving was in January 24th of 2018, and I had caught that drunk driving after driving home from my mother-in-law's funeral. So it was a very difficult time. With that known also, although you guys only look back 3 years, it had been 7 years between my first and second drunk driving. Also, with that being said, I think it's important for you to know that I am not a regular alcohol user to begin with. I am a sober bartender. I have been for at least 5 years now. Been to school for business management. I like to run my business. As you guys sit here, you don't get to drink while you're working either. So I just think that's important for you to know as well.
Great, thank you. Alderman Taylor.
It only takes a second to take a life, and with drinking on the road, it's very serious. Take our license very serious, and you're in a position to make that decision too as a bartender. Somebody's sitting there having too much, you know, you continue to serve them. They go down the road, they take somebody's life. That's why we take this serious.
Absolutely.
Alderman Langdon.
Thank you, Mayor. When was your first OWI?
September 2012.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Alderman Repella.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to approve Michelle for her bartending license. She's put in a lot of hard work to try to get her license, so I give her credit for that determination. Make the motion to approve for the license. Thank you.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Alderman Kruger?
I just would like to remind the council that we have denied licenses on first offense OWIs in the past with no other convictions. I can think two of them off the top of my head that we did.
Alderman Sevenick?
I was just still curious about the, you know, to me, it's about being an habitual offender, and do you have documentation that your criminal damage was reduced?
Yes.
Do you have documentation of that? Can I see that
Sure.
before I vote?
I can confirm that that is correct.
I just wanna see what she has here. That's different.
Clerk of Courts printed that for me.
So it was amended on January 11th of 2018, right?
The incident itself occurred in May of 2017.
Okay.
Do you have anything else, Stan?
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Okay, seeing no one else, if we could have a roll call vote, please.
To approve the beverage operation.
This is to approve, yes.
Okay. I'm gonna put Michelle's name on there.
You probably should put, yeah, who it is.
Yes. Yep, I'm getting it there. Okay.
There we go. Oops.
Motion carried on roll call 5-3.
Okay, it's been approved.
Thank you, I appreciate your time.
Welcome. There is another recommended for approval for Ms. Ashley Hilgers. Is Ashley here this evening? No? Did I just say approval? I'm sorry, for denial. So, Ms. Hilgers is not here. Do we have a motion this evening? Alderman Nichols?
Thank you, Mayor. Move for the denial of the beverage operator's license for Ashley May Hilgers.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none. Oops. We're waiting for the typing to commence. Okay, if we could have a roll call vote, please.
Motion carried on roll call 8-0.
And there is also a recommendation for denial for Ms. Durant. And I believe Ms. Durant is here this evening. Oops, there we go.
So I'm here because wow, that's loud. Because my bartender's license was denied because I got convicted of an OWI in August of last year. Since then, it was my first and my last drunk driving. Since then, I have paid all my fines, did the assessment, took all the classes. I've had an interlock in for the last 8 months, and I still have 4 more to go. So I've taken all of the proper steps legally to amend this OWI. The reason, there was a speeding ticket that went with the OWI that day, which is all, because like she was talking about, there was 3 things on it. So there was the OWI, the speeding ticket, and then an operating after hours during my revocation time, which was dropped. I don't have that on my record anymore. I was held at work past the time that I was supposed to be driving. And so, but that's not on my record anymore. So those are the reasons why I'm here. I also totally agree with James, you know, I don't drink anymore because of this. It was definitely a big lesson, and it's quite nice to bartend sober because you can feel responsible for your patrons and making sure that they get home safe. And so yeah, it's been a big lesson, and it won't happen again. And I just hope you guys approve my bartender's license, so.
Attorney Captain, do you have any questions for Mr. Rand?
Yes, thank you. Did you have a chance to read through the letter dated May 14th, 2019 that Lieutenant Thorne put together?
The one that I got had just given me a copy of, like, my record, my driving record, saying, and then it said to come, it was not granted because I had 3 things on it.
Okay, and I'll just read what those convictions are, and then what I'm gonna ask you is if you agree with what is on here. So, and I'm just gonna go from the latest dated, so 4/11/2018. Oh, okay, sure. Is that the one that you've seen?
This is everything in this. This is funny because I was looking at this like, what the heck is going on? Because they're all different dates. Because they're all different dates on there. Everything, the found guilty of BAC, that was the same as the OWI. That was the same. The signal violation is not even on my, because when I went to class, the classes have to print off your driving record. There's nothing on there for that, and that was just very recent that they had printed those. The operating while registration, oh yeah, my registration was off by like 2 days when they had pulled me over when I was driving at the time after my hours. So that's the speeding at the bottom there, the 4-11, was from the OWI. So the BAC, the OWI, the signal violation, I don't even have a clue what that is. The speeding should all be just the OWI.
So all of those occurred on the same date?
Yes.
Okay. And the operating while registration suspended,
that was
after the OWI?
So I had the OWI, and I got pulled over driving home from work because I was driving out of the hours of my occupational license.
Oh, okay.
But it just so happened that 2 days prior, my registration on my vehicle, I had to renew it and get the new sticker, and I totally spaced it. I totally forgot
Okay.
about that till now.
Okay.
Which the next day I obviously did that, yeah.
Okay.
So that seems really weird, doesn't it?
And the ignition interlock, that began, when did that begin?
Mid-September.
Okay, and is that about a year, is that what
Yep,
you?
it's a year.
Okay, a year. And what was the alcohol content?
My BAC at the time?
Yes.
I believe it was a .21,
Okay,
hence why I have it for a year.
okay. All right, thank you.
Alderman Repella.
Oh,
Oh, Alderman Langdon.
Thank you, Mayor. So, Chief Stika, what does found guilty of BAC mean?
So there's two tickets that are issued in an OWI arrest. One is the operating while intoxicated, that's based upon the officer's observations at the time of the incident. And then if a breath test or blood test is then taken and that result is over the .08 level, then the second ticket for having a prohibited alcohol concentration, the BAC ticket, is then issued. So when you do look at the found guilty of BAC and OWI on those same dates or close to the same dates, those are stemming from the same incident.
So would that be considered one?
That would be considered one, however, the other information that was provided is incorrect. The speeding ticket, which was given, was actually on March 10th, 2018, with a conviction date of April 11th, 2018. The OWI did not take place until August of 2018. The second ticket, which was then issued, was issued on June 10th, 2018, and the conviction on that one was July 23rd, 2018, a month before the OWI. So the information that was provided to you is not exactly accurate, so all these tickets were not stemming out of the OWI incident. And if there was an operating after revocation citation that's been issued, I do not see where there's been a conviction for that yet, so that is not showing up on the record.
And found guilty of signal violation.
That would be the original reason for the stop. I would have to pull up the incident report itself to find specifically what the officer observed. Normally, for the prosecution's purposes, there could be 5, 6, 7, 8 different violations, 3 violations. The officers generally will write one of them, just because that kind of shows the reason for the stop. Although the report might articulate other driving things, I don't know if there was this one violation or if there was others. But that's generally, we write what the moving violation was, and then, because that's the reason for the stop itself.
So are the officers trained or told to look for signal violations to try to get them for OWI? Well, because that's how this one got picked up.
We're off base here on.
No, there's a signal violation here.
Yes.
And the signal violation says that, or the OWI is saying that she got picked up because of the signal violation. So I'd like to know what they look for first. I mean, how,
I was also speeding though.
pardon?
I was also speeding though.
So they got you for
I
speeding
rightfully so.
and not
got
the
that
signal
OWI.
violation, you admit to that?
Yeah.
Okay, because that signal violation, boy, okay, thank you.
Attorney Captain?
So, as I understand it, Chief Stika, then we have the violation for speeding as a separate offense, the violation of operating while registration suspended as a separate offense, and then the other 3 arose out of the same circumstance, correct?
That's the way I'm reading the record, correct?
Okay, so I just want to inform the council then that the blood alcohol content and the OWI, that would be considered, you know, that's not 2 different offenses, that's, I mean, it's 2 different offenses, you can be convicted of the 2 offenses, but it's arising out of the same circumstances, so really that is to be considered one.
Alderman Taylor?
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, help me out in layman's terms. Her blood alcohol and put in that limit, is it 1 time, 2 times, 3 times?
You're referring to the level,
Yes.
0.21, 0.08 is the legal limit, so 0.16 would be twice, 0.24 would be 3 times the legal limit, so
So
in between 2 and 3 times the legal limit.
between 2 and 3 times over the legal limit. Okay, thank you.
Alderman Gray.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't know if I can ask this question, but I'll say it and then the attorney can decide or someone. You used to own the 5 o'clock sometime, correct? Is there any aspirations of you starting up a business again?
Yeah,
Can I not go there? I didn't think so. Yeah.
Yeah, that really wouldn't be
It's
relative.
not pertaining to the subject here.
Correct.
I understand. Okay.
To the decision to issue a bartender's license.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? So at this point, we'd be looking for a motion to either approve or deny. If you have another comment,
Yeah,
we'd be
sure.
welcome to hear from you as well.
Obviously, I went from a bar owner to a bartender, and I really plan on sticking in this industry. Right now, I started up a magazine company that highlights all bars and restaurants in the Fox cities. So obviously, the field of bar and restaurant industry is my passion in life. And so bartending obviously comes along with it. Again, I don't drink anymore, and I watch my patrons very well to make sure they're safe getting home, making sure that everybody on the road is safe, because these people are getting home safe. And not a lot of other bartenders have that same mindset of responsibilities for their patrons. So I'd hate to not have my bartender's license and bartend and keep this community safe as well.
So at this point, we'd be looking for a motion to either approve or deny the operating license. Anyone?
I can comment about the, if you look at paragraph 2 of the letter, and it refers to being considered a habitual offender, which is our guideline 3, that actually comes out of the statutes. And if somebody is a habitual offender, meaning that they have a number of convictions over a short period of time, that would be considered a habitual offender. Under that circumstance, it does not need to be just alcohol violations. There can be other violations that are looked at. Again, we're dealing with alcohol, which is highly regulated, and the expectation that a person needs to be able to help law enforcement enforce the laws. This again will be a decision that the council needs to make. We're basically looking at the speeding, the operating while registration suspended, and then the OWI. They do occur within a short period of time. We have about 8 or 9 months since the last conviction, and the discussion or decision that you're making will rest upon whether a sufficient length of time has passed to indicate that this person has made a change and is able to conform her behavior to follow the law in the future.
Thank you very much. I commend that you've been doing a good job for the last 8 months, but my motion will be to deny Rebecca her liquor license. Thank you.
So there's a motion to deny. Is there a second? There's a motion and a second to deny. Discussion. Did you have more discussion, Steve?
Yeah.
Okay.
If I could.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And the reason why I take a lot, this type of stuff in OWIs very seriously is everybody up here knows the amount of driving I do. And in the last year and a half, I'm at 213,000 miles of driving throughout the country, and I see some of the most horrendous stuff. The drunk drivers, texters, and all that, and I take this stuff very seriously. Being a past bar owner, you know the laws, you know what you're supposed to do and what's expected. And as was stated before, you could still bartend without a license and come back at a later time when you think you could do it, but I have to support this. I mean, I just see way too much stuff out there on the road.
Alderman Taylor?
Attorney Captain, for Mr. Rant, according to our rules, when would these, there's 5 violations on here, but it sounds like there's 4, and these were all in the year of 2018. When would this come off the time period of our ordinance or of our rules for this?
There is not a set period of time when you're considered a habitual offender, but one would look at what kind of time period is there between the last conviction and then whatever today in asking for a license, is there a sufficient period of time without any convictions that has occurred, or do you need, a longer period of time? And that really is a decision to be made by the council. And it's a case-by-case decision that is made based on the applicant and the circumstances of the various convictions that were had.
So if I'm reading this right, her last conviction was on 9/11/2018. 16. The OWI and the BAC, wasn't that together?
That would be one.
What, yeah. Why is it separate date on that? I mean,
It just may be when it was entered into the court. Not
So,
quite sure why
with the
they would
OWI,
have separate
the
dates.
blood alcohol.
And maybe it's a typo. I mean, it could be a typo in that it's supposed to read 9/11.
Thank you very much.
Alderman Sevenick?
Thank you. Regardless, I agree with Alderman Kruger. It is habitual. It's too recent. It's just too recent. I don't know if you know, but I do know who you are, and I've heard great things about you. And from friends of mine that think that you're probably one of the hardest workers they've ever met. And also, I had the opportunity to see your magazine, and I think it's high-end and high quality, and I wish you the very best success with that, because I think it's an outstanding magazine. But we do set guidelines and rules, and it just shows that it's too habitual and too soon.
Can I, Chief, are you able, because it's not a habitual OWI, this is my one and only OWI.
No, I'm not.
What I have, okay, maybe you need to explain it to me. So what I have on there is my OWI, and then the operating while registration is suspended. And then when is that speeding, what is that speeding ticket from?
4/11 of 18.
Is that correct?
Yeah, your conviction was on April 11th of 18. It happened on March 10th of 18.
Okay, so we have an OWI, and we have a driving without, it was past registration, and a speeding ticket. If you look at my record before those incidents, I've not had a speeding ticket or anything besides a parking ticket in over 15 years. I think the last speeding ticket I got was when I was like 18 years old. I'm 34 now. So to say these are habitual, the fact that I immediately
You said it was in March, your conviction was in April. March 10th.
are you able, like, I don't, like, so I have this, but do you actually have my record? Because when I had my record from what the tech gave me just recently, it doesn't show any of this. It shows what I know, and it shows what I'm talking about, because I was there. This is confusing. Because what I've actually had to pay fines on and what I've been convicted of is my OWI. Everything else I have not been charged for. Like, I did what they wanted for me to get my points back and have that dropped for the driving without my registration, because they try to make sure when people are doing what they should be doing, we're not hurting them even more to make it harder to get their licenses back, because it's already such a tough thing. And because statistically, over 3/4 of the people that do get drunk drivings drive without a license for how long, until they pretty much are forced to. Am I not correct, Chief there? Like,
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna have the chief answer that one.
like,
Do you have any other information on her record, chief, or?
and also I'd like to say, I mean, the last lady, not comparing apples to oranges, but wouldn't you call that habitual? 2 OWIs? Breaking a mirror over somebody's car? So I have one with the speeding ticket, which I don't even know is on my record. I don't even know. I think that's really associated with the OWI. And also a driving without my license being registered for 2 days, which got dropped from my record. So technically, it shouldn't
Chief, did you
be habitual.
have anything else, or just?
Not really.
Not really,
I
okay.
can confirm that she does have a driver's license now, she is valid. And the only other info that I really have on it is, it was in a 25-mile-an-hour zone where you were 11 to 19 miles an hour over in March. And the other one took place, and that was in Winnebago County. The other one with the vehicle registration would have been in Calumet County, and that was on June 10th. So that's really the only other.
So can you tell if she paid the fine for the speeding ticket or not?
She must have,
Okay.
either paid or was found guilty one way or the other, but both of those are listed as guilty
The
convictions.
speeding ticket has to be for my OWI, because I was going, I was
They're on
speeding.
different,
He did drop
Okay.
that one.
okay.
It is not, because I never got convicted of speeding.
Well, obviously,
Yeah,
I
it's,
found here the documents that you were found guilty on 4/11.
2018,
Yes,
going 11 over,
11 to 19,
I would remember that. I would know this. That is incorrect information.
is that correct or not?
it's in the record, is what the chief had said. If I can hit the right button here.
That's what the record has. If it was a Nina Menasha ticket, if you want to hold this for a few minutes, I can make a phone call and phone a friend.
Other two I have, Mayor, if I can get
Okay. I don't know if I can do that or not. Here we go.
She had just stated that her registration thing was dropped. If that was dropped, then you would not have the habitual offenses that I would
Correct.
consider. So I would like for you to check that one, and if that one was dropped, then my opinion will be different. But if she was, what I have here, found guilty of it, I mean, that's a different matter.
Yeah, I won't be able to check, I have to go on the DOT record for the operating with the suspended registration, because that was a Calumet County conviction, so it was either a Calumet County agency or one of the agencies in Calumet County, so I can't specifically look up that
Can
ticket.
we?
I got that
But the
ticket when
speeding
I
one,
was in
Postpone
High
this for
Cliff.
another date then?
So-
That, I'm gonna suggest then, I'm sorry to have to do this, but.
Are you
because-
kidding?
Well, we're gonna have to postpone it for 2 weeks because you're
We already
telling us,
postponed it another 2 weeks because
you're right, I mean, we can deny it right now, or we can give you an opportunity to postpone it to find out if the records are right. And if they're not right, then you may get your license. If they are correct, you won't get your license.
that's fine. I can run home and give you the printout that the classes my tech gave me.
The chief will,
So what we
I'll
can
just
do,
move to postpone this until the end of the meeting. The chief will look into the matters
you.
then. Okay.
okay. If there's no objection, we're going to move on to the next item, which is the operator's licenses for next year, and there are none that are recommended for denial, so it should be easier. Is there a motion? Alderman Nichols?
Thank you, Mayor. This is item number 3, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Move for the approval of the beverage operator's license applications for the 2019 through 2021 licensing period as listed in the deputy clerk's memo dated May 30th, 2019.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, if we could have a roll call vote, please.
Motion carried on roll call 8-0.
Item 4 is the liquor license applications recommended for approval in the 2019-20 licensing year, and I believe that we can add to this as well, or do we have to take them up separately? These two now are also paid, correct?
That's fine. Yes, we can add those to the list.
So if you look at items 4 and 5, there are, item 4 is the ones that were recommended for approval. Item 5 was the ones that were recommended for denial. The two that were recommended for denial were recommended due to delinquent property taxes. They have both paid their property taxes at this point, so you could make a motion to approve all of them at this point if you'd like as one motion, or you could do it as two separate motions, whichever you prefer. Alderman Nichols?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move for the approval of the liquor license applications for the licensing year for the 2019 through 2020 licensing year as listed in the memo from the clerk dated May 30th, 2019, and also to include Plank Road Pub LLC at 800 Plank Road and Margaritaville LLC at 6 Taco Street.
Is there a second? So motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, if we could have a roll call vote, please, if you're ready. I'm sorry. Forgot that you had things to add. Oops.
Motion carried on roll call 8-0.
Item 6 is the outdoor alcoholic beverage service permits for 2019-20. There's a motion. Alderman Nichols?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move for the approval of the outdoor alcohol beverage service permit applications for the 2019 through 2020 licensing year as listed in the clerk's memo dated May 30th, 2019.
So motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, if we could have a roll call vote, please.
Motion carried on roll call 8-0.
Item 7 is a Class B liquor license for Superior Mobile, and we have been informed that they have withdrawn their application at this point, so no action is required on that. Item 8 is the DOT equipment grant. Do we have a motion to accept and use those funds? Oh, and of course, the chief is gone at this point. Perfect timing. Alderman Nichols?
We could take up the item.
Yes.
Okay, I'll move for the approval of the, I'll move for the approval of the DOT equipment grant acceptance and authority to purchase.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Too much Mountain Dew. Seeing, oops, Alderman Nichols?
Thank you, Mayor. Just so the gallery and the viewing public are aware, this is coming to us from the police department, and they've been awarded $8,000 in grants to purchase technology that will help enforce speeding in the city.
So seeing no further discussion, if we could have a roll call vote, please.
Motion carried on roll call 8-0.
Item K is ordinances and resolution. The first item is ordinance 8-19. Is there a motion?
Make a motion to accept the signs for, 0819, an ordinance amending Title 10, Chapter 1, Article B of the Code of Ordinances, controlled intersections, designated midway crossing, introduced by Alderman Ropella, recommended by the Board of Public Works.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, if we could have a roll call vote, please.
Motion carried on roll call 8-0.
Seeing that the chief isn't back yet, and I think you guys are all here for public comments, we'll let the public comments go first, and then we'll move back to the other item if anyone wishes to speak. We'll figure out who you are, but
So I don't remember who exactly said what when everybody was making their comments because it was so long ago. But I wanted, I wanted to, so I don't want to point fingers. But I wanted to comment saying like, previous years, we didn't get notices. So it was hard for us to plan ahead, to try to move our vehicles earlier during the day or the day before or such and such. So this year, yes, we can plan ahead since we did get a notice. Maybe can we try to get it a little bit sooner than the 2 weeks for maybe the case of the birthday party? As far as the races go, even when they're on their break in between races, there's still people practicing the race. So it's still really hard to try to get out in between the race times. But maybe designate a parking area for the residences, or maybe just switch it up every year to a different area. But I will definitely suffer through it this year and give feedback to see how they work with us and maybe go from there. So I just wanted to thank you.
Yeah, thanks. It's me again, Zach Wheeler, 858 First Street, Menasha, Wisconsin. All right, I'm still here, you're still here, so you know this is kind of important. And let the record reflect, it's an open house, it's not a birthday party.
Does that mean that we're all invited?
You're all, I
Okay.
mean, if you can find parking, go for it.
I'll walk.
All right, so just real quick, I want to echo Rosita's comment. I want to thank you all for taking the time to listen. I want to thank you all for deliberating on it. Unfortunately, the resolution on the table or that was passed does not address the issue of losing 6 to 8 blocks of street parking. That is a facility that I consider living in the city of Menasha and being a taxpayer to be part of living there, and that is now gone. In addition to those 6 to 8 that are being blocked off for the race, within 2 to 3 blocks, you're going to have all the vehicles that show up at 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning to then unload their vehicles. Many of these people have families, so they are coming for the kids' races in the morning and the adult races in the afternoon. Personally, I've had this conversation with Steve from Diablo Cycling numerous times. I cannot understand why the people who have bikes don't park at the pool and ride their bikes to the event, but that's just me. So unfortunately, it does not address parking. I would also like to encourage the council to have the Public Works team go back and read through previous year's applications. Last year was actually on a Sunday and it was on Mother's Day. And we know that because the lady across the street from us had to cancel her Mother's Day event because of this issue. They actually ended up moving it to her daughter-in-law's house, which was over in Neenah. So I would also like to comment on the idea that doing it because it's been done in the past is great as long as it's on the city calendar. I can plan for this kind of stuff as long as it's on the city calendar, even just a tentative thing. But 2 weeks' notice, the invitations for our open house went out 45 days ago. It is incredibly difficult for us to plan when we check the city website, we check city records, we check Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, however, and then it just happens. So anything we can do to better do that, I understand. We have festivals that happen all the time at the park, but we know about those in advance. We have 4th of July that happens at the park, but we know about that in advance. Anytime we lose the street parking and we lose the flexibility of the neighborhood, it's on the city calendar. In this case, it's not. So that's just a thing to consider and think about ways we can fix that going forward. Sorry, this is really bad. I think the last thing to comment on, again, just the idea that it's been happening for X number of years and that my opinion is any less important as a resident because I've only lived here less than 10, that's a little hurtful. And I don't know of a nice city council way to phrase that, but I don't know that the length of time that I've lived in this city should have any impact on the weight of my opinion as a resident. I also think that the idea that as a resident we should just grab a chair kind of implies that I don't have anything going on, which I don't think is the kind of person that you'd like to encourage to live in Menasha. So that's just my 2 cents. I have no idea if this is like a Q&A thing, but if you guys have any questions for me, excited to answer them.
So typically it's not a Q&A thing?
Fantastic, then
which
bye.
is great. Well, thank you so much for speaking, though, we appreciate that. So, oh, and perfect timing. So the chief is back.
Okay, so in looking into the in-house records, the speeding ticket where there's conviction for on March 12th, or March, whatever it was, did stem from a traffic incident where an officer was on routine patrol driving the opposite direction on Plank Road. The traffic stop was conducted at Plank and Baldwin. The vehicle was traveling at a speed of 46 miles an hour in a 25-mile-an-hour zone, and that one was captured on a radar, and that citation was issued there. The OWI stemmed from an incident. The officers were actually on a welfare check in Jefferson Park at the time, and they observed a vehicle at a very high rate of speed coming down 3rd Street. The traffic, they did not write a ticket for it, but they estimated that the vehicle was traveling between 50 to 60 miles an hour down the street. And that arrest was made by Lieutenant Lenz. So they were 2 completely separate incidences. As far as the operating after registration of the vehicle being suspended or not suspended, being expired, like I said, that was a Calumet County thing, so I can't look up that one. But it was clear because it was from another jurisdiction and has nothing, no tags to Neenah or Menasha, that would have been a separate incident.
Do we have unanimous consent to hear from Ms. Durant again?
So Plank Road and by Jefferson is exactly where I got pulled over for speeding and for my OWI. I did not get a separate ticket in March.
You did. You got a ticket from Officer Denton Heidemann in March for just the speeding violation. You were actually traveling the opposite direction for that one versus the OWI. The OWI was a completely different officer on a completely different day.
Was that in
I'm
March
sorry,
2017 or 2018?
2018. They actually stopped you at Conomac and Second for your OWI arrest. Not Third Street, not Plank Road. Same general area, I'll give you that, but they're clearly two completely separate, different incidences.
Oh.
Alderman Nichols.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Chief, for taking the time. For me, it's all about the OWI. That's where it rests for me. And I'm pleased that you have taken the steps necessary to do the things that you're doing. And I need to know that good decisions can be made after your interlock is removed.
That is why I quit drinking.
And that's where it is. So with that, Mayor, I'd like to call the question.
So, seeing no further discussion on the council floor, we'd like to have a roll call vote on the motion that was at hand, which was a motion to deny the license.
Who made that motion?
Alderman Rapella did.
And Alderman Kruger.
And, okay. Alderman Kruger and Alderman Rapella. And that was 15 minutes ago.
I know you want to call the question, but I still didn't get my answer about the registration suspension. And to me, if I found that was thrown out, my opinion would be different, most likely, but that wasn't found out. But we did find out about the fact that there's confusion, there isn't any now confusion about the speeding.
Okay, if we could have a roll call vote, please.
Motion carried on roll call, 7-1.
And at this point, I would accept a motion to adjourn. The motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.